Greetings everyone, Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of Classic Album War. Today we're going to look at two fantastic debut albums. I'm going to use that term loosely today. Debut albums from ex-members or ex-vocalists from Deep Purple, Ian Gillan's Gillan Band, and David Coverdale's Whitesnake. The reason why I use the term loosely is in one instance, the band had released sort of an EP prior to this, this debut album, and the other, they actually released an album, a debut album, which was only ever released in Japan, not available anywhere else in the world, and then basically changed the lineup, went back into the studio with a new lineup, made another album, and re-recorded a bunch of those tunes from that first only Japanese release for the then new album, which basically was a international debut for the entire universe, right? So, with that said, we're talking about Whitesnake and their album Trouble versus Gillan Mr. Universe, Again, both made a name for themselves with the mighty Deep Purple. Ian Gillan, of course, was in the Mark II era, Mark II version of the band. David Coverdale, the Mark III version. Both of these bands came out after Purple was no more. So Coverdale, of course, Purple breaks up. Coverdale does a couple solo albums. Then one of the albums, of course, starts to flirt with that name Whitesnake. And then decided to actually name a band Whitesnake, put out a little EP of some of the best tunes from those solo albums, what have you, and then just got a solidified band together to come up with this debut album, Trouble. These are the guys right here. Of course, you got Coverdale on vocals, you got Mickey Moody and Bernie Marsden on guitars, Bernie also did a little singing on this album as well. Neil Murray on bass, John Lord on keyboards, his old mate in Deep Purple, and then David Dowell on drums. So you know that the Whitesnake lineup would change quite a bit in those early years. You'd have different drummers and bass players kind of popping in and out of the band, but the core of Coverdale, Moody, and Marsden, and for a while, John Lord would kind of stay intact. So this is a really strong album, a great full-length debut from the band, kicking it off with "Take Me With You." A really good kind of frantic bluesy rocker. One of the things about this album, it's not a very heavy album. It's pretty rockin' though. It's kind of bluesy. Well, not kind of bluesy, very bluesy actually. There's an element of like kind of funk too going on, which kind of carried over from the latter Deep Purple stuff, like Stormbringer and Come Taste the Band. Very prevalent in the music here. A lot of really tight grooves. Plenty of sizzling guitar licks from the guitar team. In fact, arguably, you could say that some of this album has an almost southern rock feel to it. Again, it's basically that blues rock thing. So Take Me With You, a great kickoff track. Love to Keep You Warm. Really, really good tune. In fact, Love to Keep You Warm has got some really cool, like kind of Thin Lizzy things going on, which I always liked. Lie Down, a great tune. Frantic blues rock rave up. They do a cover of Day Tripper by the Beatles. Well done. Nighthawk, Vampire Blues, probably one of my favorite tunes on here. That's a good gritty hard rocker. The Time Is Right for Love, again, another tune that's got those kind of weaving dual guitar harmony things that Thin Lizzy were making famous at the time, which I really dig. It's an underrated gem on this album. The title track, Trouble. Trouble's Always Calling My Name. Great tune. Belgian Tom's Hat Trick. Fun little tune. Free Flight, which is the song that's sung by Bernie Marsden. And it's funny, you listen to that, that's a really good tune. Again, another one of those real, gems from this album that nobody ever talks about. And one of the things I really like about that's the Free Flight song. It's got some great guitar riffs in it. It's got a great groove. But Marsden's vocals remind me a lot of Glenn Hughes. So it's almost like, kind of in a weird way, like a leftover track from either the Stormbringer or the Come Taste the Band sessions from Deep Purple. Really interesting tune. And then you got also the rousing, rampaging Don't Mess With Me. Really good tune. I dig this album a lot. It's a lot of fun. Great Really cool production. In fact, I believe Martin Birch worked on this album, if I am not mistaken. Let me just double check that. Yep, Martin Birch, produced by Martin Birch. So, Moving over to the other album, okay, Mr. Universe. So both of these albums were released in October of each year. So you got October 79, 78, and then October 79. Okay, so this one features the then new lineup of course, Ian Gillan on vocals. You got Bernie Torme on guitar. This would be Bernie Torme's big introduction to the world. Colin Towns on keyboards, flute. Co-produced the album as well. Colin, of course, had been with Ian for a number of years. He was also in the Ian Gillan band just prior to this one. John McCoy on bass, okay, also helped out with the production here. And then Mick Underwood on drums, okay. Mick also had been actually played for a long time with Ian Gillan in between Deep Purple, Black Sabbath stints and all that kind of stuff. So what do we got here? So we've got a great selection of tunes. This is a pretty damn heavy album. What's also cool is that it's also kind of proggy in spots. You know, Colin Towns, a great synth player, great pianist as well. So you got a lot of really cool things in here. You've got, of course, Second Sight, which is that kind of cool proggy instrumental that kind of opens the whole thing up here. You've got Secret of the Dance, a rampaging heavy rocker. Okay, Ian screaming up a storm. All right, what else? She Tears Me Down. More rampaging, cranking, heavy stuff. Okay. Roller. You know, it's just amazing like how almost every single track on this album is just high energy, up tempo, Ian belting it out, okay, screaming Bernie Torme guitar licks, classic stuff. Then you've got the awesome title track, which is heavy, it's proggy, great synth work from Towns. Bernie just ripping it up on guitar. Love it. Then you got Vengeance, which is the kind of bluesy metal anthemic rocker on the album. Great tune. Puget Sound. Again, kind of bluesy in the beginning, and then it just turns into this great pounding heavy rocker. What else you got here? Dead of Night. Another crunchy metal tune. What's really cool about this album, and you know, Message in a Bottle coming up too. That's another, I think Message in a Bottle is another cool tune because it's like a frantic heavy rock tune, but I think a lot of this album kind of predates just work right around the same time. It just totally fits in with what was going on with the new wave of British heavy metal. You know, you got some like little elements of speed metal in some of these tunes, right? There's just kind of raw, raucous, rampage and heavy rock energy throughout this whole album. And then track number 10, the last track, is Fighting Man, which is just absolutely tremendous. Fighting Man is proggy, it's heavy, it's got Ian screaming up a storm at the end, a la Child in Time. Just fantastic album. And you got, you know, the guys in the band, most of the members of the band helped out with writing, but it was mostly Ian on lyrics and Colin Towns on a lot of the music. But just a really fantastic album. Both of these really are. So, you know, what do I think when I kind of compare them both? I mean, they mean so much to me. You know, obviously, as most of you know, I'm an enormous Whitesnake fan. And Whitesnake arguably would go on to make better albums than this, even though this is a damn good album. Gillan also made some great albums. I mean, I think Gillan, one of the most underrated bands of that time period, and they've got like 4 or 5 albums that are just top notch, really, really good, very underrated. It's funny how many people I come into contact with who have never heard any of the Gillan albums. You know, when it comes to Ian Gillan, they know his work in Deep Purple, and that's about it. You know, maybe they've heard Born Again by Black Sabbath, but they've never listened to any of the Gillan albums. And man, if you haven't, you need to. If you love like late 70s, early 80s heavy rock, okay, approaching metal, if you love the new wave of British heavy metal stuff, you're going to totally get into this stuff. So, can you tell where I'm going here? I really dig this album a lot, okay? But I love this album a lot. For me, Gillan gets the win. It's a late 10th round knockout after a furious back and forth battle, but Gillan wins it in the end. It's just heavier. It takes a more chances. And quite frankly, this, for me, is one of Ian's easily top 5 vocal performances. All right, it's just fantastic stuff. And again, it's not to knock this album at all, because you guys know how much I love Whitesnake, and I do love this album. But this just hits so hard. Bernie Torme just kills it on here. Great keyboard work. Again, I have to reiterate, what I love so much about this album is how damn heavy it is, but it's also quite proggy in spots. There's great anthems on here. There's just classic Gillan screaming and singing. The John McCoy's bass, man, Underwood's drums. It's just this album is just like perfection, basically. So, 10th round knockout. Mr. Universe wins over Trouble. You may think differently, and that's totally cool, because there's really no winners or losers here. That they're all, it's an excuse to talk about two kick-ass albums. Here we've got two ex-Purple singers doing it up, doing it right, making their name in the world away from their former band, and doing a great job. So, curious to see what you guys think. Remember, nobody's right or wrong here, all a matter of preference. I love them both. I favor this one, though. Curious to see what you think. Put it in the comments and feedback below. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube every morning with these classic album wars. Don't touch that dial. We've got Wishbone Ash, top 10 songs coming right up. Don't miss it. See you then. Bye.